Alright, so today's video we're going to be talking about niche research and keyword research specifically for coloring books in 2025, because depending on what type of book that you're going to publish, I think there's two kind of different ways that you should be approaching coloring books in 2025. So first off, we're going to talk about misleading research advice that you might have seen on YouTube. Then we're going to talk about the BSR research and whether that's a reliable way of gauging how much demand a niche has. Then we're going to talk about whether keywords are actually relevant anymore. Then we're going to talk about how to get into these really juicy, super lucrative, low BSR niches that we see all over YouTube. And then we're going to talk about when and how to niche down if you don't quite have the investment for the bigger niches. And then we're going to talk about something that not many people talk about, which is incredibly important, which is production cost versus demand. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Chris. I've been self-publishing on Amazon for over 12 years, I think it is now. I've had success and failures with all kinds of different books, but I've kind of decided to build my main pen name, my main brand, where I see my future with publishing pretty much entirely around coloring books. And I think it's important if you're going to try and get into coloring books is that you take advice from someone who is actively doing it themselves. Because like I say, I do think there is a specific way to approach keyword research and niche research for these type of books. So let's get into this and talk about misleading coloring book research advice. Now, without being distasteful or trying to come across as the coloring book savior of YouTube, there just is a lot of bad advice from people that aren't actively publishing these type of books. So when it comes to super lucrative niches, ones that have got incredibly low BSRs that people tend to make videos about, they showcase the Coco Wire books, the Vivi Tinta books, Fuzzy Friends, all those type of really low BSR books that are making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month. The angle that a lot of people take is that all you need to do is to niche down in order to stand out in these niches. I'm going to give an example in just a second, but the reality is that even if a book seems niche down, it's probably still incredibly competitive. So I'm going to give examples if that didn't make sense in just a second, but typically books, the coloring books they're making that say over $1,000 a month, they do need a specific approach, which I'm going to cover in this video. So personally, I completely disagree on the effectiveness of keyword research tools for these type of books. I'm going to explain why as we do our live demonstration. But really, it's very likely that people are searching for a specific book. So if a keyword research tool says that something like Fuzzy coloring book, Fuzzy Friends coloring book, for example, has got a ton of traffic going to it with very low competition, it probably means that people are just searching for a very specific book from a very specific company like Coco Wire. So like I said, as an example, something like Fuzzy Friends coloring book, people aren't, in my opinion, typing that in unless they're looking for specifically I think it's the Vivi Tinta book, for example, or if they're looking for Girl Moments coloring book, then they're probably specifically looking for the Coco Wire book, which might lead to niche research tools being skewed and giving you a good suggestion when maybe it's not. And typically these books are getting found for a very broad, very competitive search term. So you're going to need a strategy to make this work for you, to make these lucrative niches worth your time. I'll go over that strategy, of course, as we go through this video. Just to give an example from the bold and easy coloring book niche, what you're going to see is when people talk about these type of books having a lot of demand and not much competition, they're going to show you something like Bold and Easy Cute Pairs coloring book, which has a decent BSR here. So surface level, this looks like this company has niched down to something more specific, but the reality is that they're only being found for super competitive and super broad search terms. So just to give another example here, what you might find is people recommending something like Comfy Patterns Bold and Easy coloring book. So what people are going to show you is something like this. So they're going to show you something like Comfy Patterns Bold and Easy coloring book, and then they're going to say this has only got 366 search results, which means that there's not much competition. And look how low the BSRs are for some of these books here. They're looking quite good. Now, again, the reality here is that this book, for example, or these books, for example, they're being found from super broad search terms. So something like coloring book for adults, Bold and Easy coloring book, simple coloring book, cozy coloring book, pattern coloring book, logical search terms that are very, very competitive. And then when the customer sees these books, they like the concept of comfy patterns. They're probably not typing that into Amazon. And if they are typing that into Amazon, it's because they're looking for something like the Coco Wyo book for it. So in my opinion, very misleading advice. I am on board with doing something different, like being the first to create a comfy patterns book. But what this advice does, it leads to people doing pretty much exactly what you're going to see here, is just to create the same shit over and 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 over. And because this concept has been done already, it's been done by a very good company in Coco Wyo with high quality illustrations, advertising spend. They're probably one of the first to do it in this style, which means that they're going to take pretty much all of the money. And even if you get ranked for this search term, you're not going to see any sales because people aren't searching for that. They're just searching for the broad search term. Hopefully that made sense. But as we go through this video, I will talk about how to get into these super lucrative niches, which is where I spend all my time and where pretty much all of my income through publishing comes. And if you're not ready to get into these super lucrative competitive niches, I'm going to show you some research methods that you can use to actually reduce the competition and get into smaller niches as well. So here's a really interesting topic that I want to touch upon before we get into the demonstrations for the bigger niches and the smaller niches and how to get into them. And that is BSR research for coloring books. I'm not talking about high content books or other types of books. I'm talking about, well, you know, this is applicable for a lot of other books here, but we're talking about coloring books in this video. But does BSR research really matter in 2025? So my opinion is that this is somewhat skewed because everyone, when you find books on the first page of Amazon, there's a huge percentage of people are running ads to the books. Now you can get a decent BSR on surface level. You can get a decent BSR from just getting 2 sales in a day. You can get your BSR down to 200,000, down to 100,000, down to 80,000, just through virtue of running advertising campaigns. So like I said, most books you'll find probably going to have ads being run to them. So what we do, in my opinion, is that we need to, for coloring books, we need to see that the BSRs are mega low for any project that you plan on taking on. Because if you're looking at something that has like a 300,000 BSR across multiple books, or just 1, 2, or 3 different books to qualify if that niche has got demand, I just don't think that's good enough anymore, because so many advertising campaigns are being run to these type of books. So I tend to look for BSRs that are a lot lower now, so less than 50,000. Now, to be completely honest, I only get into competitive niches, and I look for these kind of broad niches, these broad ideas and topics that have incredibly low BSRs. So I'm talking about lower than 1,000. So that's the competitive niche approach, which we're going to cover as we go through this. But in general, for a lot of coloring books, I like to see less than 50,000, for example. Okay, so this brings me on to something that I think is incredibly important, which is the demand versus the production cost. And again, this is something that I don't hear people talking about because I do think it is super important. So just to give an example, and this is important across any book that you publish, but if you're spending 6 months and let's say $6,000 on a scuba diving coloring book that nobody wants to buy, it's going to be a waste of time and money. Okay, so if the BSRs for these type of books were, let's say, 200,000 or 300,000 for scuba diving coloring books, and you go ahead and you produce one for $1,000, $2,000, $500, a significant amount of money, it's not going to be worth your time. So this is just as bad, in my opinion, as spending, let's say, $500 on one generic bold and easy coloring book, because you've been misled to thinking that they're super easy to get ranked for because you've niched down. Your book is probably going to get lost on Amazon. Okay, so if I'm willing to spend, let's say, $500 on a coloring book, the niche or the idea, it has to have a huge demand in order for me to get into. So like I said, without keeping repeating myself, I will show exactly what I mean by this. But if my budget is smaller, Then I want to look at smaller niches, and production costs should be lower. So likely using something like AI, which again, we're going to cover in just a second. So let's talk about these mega juicy niches. Now, these are my preferred niches to get into. They do require a very specific approach. Okay, so let's talk about this now. Now, they don't take more than 5 seconds to find these type of books, and we're going to do a live example to go through this. They're going to have insanely low BSRs. They're kind of like these viral trending type of books that you find on TikTok, and Coco Wire do them, Vivi Tinta, Jade Summer, typically these kind of square looking books. And for me, like, this is the best opportunity when it comes to coloring books, because your creativity is what makes these books sell. And this is something that people aren't talking about enough, but it is what really matters. So like I said, I'll show you that in just a second. But the problem that we have here is that, as discussed, these are likely found from incredibly broad search terms. So think of it this way: if a search term is very broad, like coloring book or coloring book for adults, for teens, cozy coloring book, cute coloring book, easy coloring book, simple coloring book, these are very competitive search terms. Okay, these search terms are occupied by the best of the best. So in these niches, it's, for me, this is what I do to stand out. It's all about the idea, the quality of the book cover, and a prolonged advertising spend. So really, you take the broad niche, if it's easy, cute, simple, cozy, for example, then you fill it with something new and interesting, and then you see how the marketplace responds to this, instead of making the same shit that people have made over and over and over, thinking that you're getting ranked for some special keyword when really you are not. And one thing with this approach is, unless you're an illustrator and you have zero investment, it is definitely time to come back down to earth. No matter what anyone's told you, it's going to require investment for creating a great product, A+ content, book cover, and a prolonged advertising spend is going to be super important for this as well. So let's take a quick look at these niches. So like I said, it can literally take you 5 seconds to find all of these really low BSR books. And I don't use the sales calculator things for this. Like, it's irrelevant. If you find a book that's ranked 13 or 10 or 16, you should know 196 that it has a stupendous amount of traffic going to it. So like I said, these are the type of niches that I take on. I don't manage to make the sales that Coco Wire make or Hikaru Cots make, but there is still an incredible opportunity if you do this the right way. So what I'm talking about here is that, since these are all broad, nobody's really searching for cat moments coloring book as an example, right? Unless they're looking for the Hikaru Cots version of this book, nobody's searching for that. Okay, so we're not niching down. This, look at this, there's no niche, there's no like fancy keyword shit going on here. It's super broad, which means it's super competitive. Now, this is the idea. Okay, this is not niching down or doing any of that fancy stuff. They've presented us with the idea of cat moments, cute cats all over the place, etc., etc. So there's two ways of going about this, in my opinion. The first is to take an existing concept that has already been working for someone else. So this concept would be a square book, it's cute, and it has cozy cats in it. So you would take this concept and you would make something different, but still remaining within this style. So cats, cute, simple pages. Okay, so you could do something like, I don't know exactly, cats in space, cozy cats in space, something like that. Cozy cats and women would be a great one. I already know that's kind of trending at the moment. And the main thing here is that we do not copy people. We never copy people. We can take inspiration, that's absolutely fine. But copying people's ideas and doing a lesser job of it is not how we make sales. So the second way that we can do this is to be the first into an idea. So just to give you an example of what this might look like in terms of these very cute kinds of books here. If we were to take the broad niche of something like Bold and Easy coloring books. So again, not many people are really going to be searching for food, drink, and sweets coloring book. It's all going to be super broad search terms. You might get some people, because of just through virtue of how popular this book is, some people might be searching for that. It's not niching down, in my opinion. So the second way of doing things here is to be the absolute first of your kind into these broad niches. So bold and easy is a very broad niche. Ultimately, you would come up with something new that's not been done before within the bold and easy niche. So for example, I saw one the other day. It was like a knitted sweater, bold and easy coloring book. Provided that it makes sense, you would then be the first person into that niche. But of course, you'd still be targeting super broad search terms. And then if someone likes your concept, then they would purchase, and they probably wouldn't be finding you through keyword research for more specific keywords. So that's the super juicy niches. I think there is so much potential. Like you must have seen like these kind of new cozy crime. I'm not trying to push people toward a certain niche, but what I'm saying is that these type of books, the coloring books, where there's always like a new trend. First it was like bold and easy coloring books, and there was like cute and cozy friends. Now I've got like kind of mixtures of the cute crime scene stuff that people are starting to get onto, mixing it now with horror and detective, murder mystery type cute animal things. There's so much opportunity that this is one of the reasons why I love doing the coloring books, is because if you have some creativity in you and you have the means to run the advertising campaigns properly and actually manage to create an amazing, interesting book cover properly as well, the potential here, in my opinion, is unlimited. And it's, in my opinion, again, it's the best way to build a brand that gets a lot of social media coverage as well. There's just so much to it. And if you're serious about this, if you want to get into the whole coloring book thing and you want to take advice from someone who is actively doing it, and I'm not talking about doing it 2 years ago, I'm talking about actively publishing books to this very day, and building a website, building a proper brand, social media presence, and you want to see all of that, I highly recommend that you check out the Raydog membership. And if you want to check it out, it's at chrisraydog.com. Just to give you an idea as to what's inside, we have, for people that learn through course content, we have all the course content inside of it. There's pretty much everything from start to finish. So getting started, niche research, keyword research, launching your book, Amazon ads, marketing, metrics, case studies, and Raydog Live. So the Raydog Live, we do weekly calls every single Friday where we have a topic. I showcase all of my books as well, all the books that the coloring books that I have, the angles that I put onto them, how we create book covers that are miles ahead of the competition. All these calls get recorded, so if you ever want to go back and check anything out about ads, hiring an illustrator, we have Raydog review sessions as well once a month where we have more one-on-one time with individual publishers who want more feedback on what they're doing from me. And on top of all of this, we have an amazing Discord community where you can go in, post your book covers to get feedback on them, post your advertising campaigns to get feedback on them. You can get feedback from me, you can get feedback from other sellers as well, people who are beginners, people who are more advanced, people who have made big progression in recent weeks. You can get a ton of feedback. And like I said, in my opinion, it is the best place you can be, especially if you're trying to get into coloring books and make the most amount of sales you can possibly make. So that's chrisraydog.com. It's going to be linked below if you want to check it out. But let's carry on. That's super competitive niches. Now, if you feel like you don't have the budget to compete, and here's the thing with the super competitive niches, what we're talking about here is creating a very unique product, a good product with a good interior, amazing book cover, and then some advertising spend. The reason that it works well if you do it in a very specific way is because once you get boosted onto Amazon during this kind of honeymoon period, what you want to happen is you just want to get people to click on your book. So when you're doing something new, something different, something interesting that stands out, you don't just copy other people, you start getting the clicks gravitating towards your book cover. Now imagine, why would people click on your book if they've already seen Coco Wild's version of it, a much better version? Okay, so that's why these niche videos about very specific niches, which aren't specific niches at all, are complete bullshit in my opinion. So let's talk about niching down properly to lower competition niches. Okay, there is still, in my opinion, there is decent demand for these type of books, and I'm going to give examples as we go through, but we're talking about more specific niche, targeting a more specific niche, a more specific niche, a more specific keyword, or a more specific audience. Okay, so when we talk about this, we're not talking about bold and easy comfy patterns coloring book. People aren't searching for that. We're talking about logical search terms and audiences that people might be searching for. So for example, inspirational swear word coloring book for women, or inspirational coloring book for women, or swear word coloring book for women, large print coloring book for seniors, cat coloring book for seniors. These are all logical search terms, and they're slightly more niche down. So like I said, cute fuzzy buddies coloring book, this is the complete opposite. It's not a logical search term, and if there are any logical terms in this, it's likely going to be something very broad like cute coloring book. Okay, so the broader it is, the better the book, the more competitive it is, the better the book has to be. Okay, whereas with something like an inspirational swear word coloring book for women, it doesn't have to be the best on the market. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't shoot to be the best. It just means that most people don't know how to produce the best types of coloring books, so you would have lesser competition to go up against here. Okay, so now at this stage for these type of books, we can start to rely on keywords and search results. And like I said, we can create a lesser offering and still make sales, not intentionally, of course. Whoops. So before I end this, we want to go and do a live demonstration of how this works now. So let's just come back onto the listing that we were on. Now, the best thing that you can do is, if you are looking for these specific, super specific niches, is just to, and I've always preached this to people, is just to spend time on Amazon. So you can come over to a coloring book, for example, and then go through the customers who bought this also read section here, and then just start clicking on different books. And eventually, as you keep going down this rabbit hole, you're going to start finding more specific types of books. I get dragged in this direction here, swear word motivational quotes. So this is like a motivational coloring book, which again, it would be a more specific type of topic, niche, keyword. It's all the same thing. And then you can keep going down this rabbit hole here where you find lots and lots of different books. And what you want to be looking out for here is just these different topics that make sense. Okay, so swear words, it makes sense. Mental health coloring book, that kind of makes sense. I think people are probably searching for that, and you can just keep going through this, going down this rabbit hole. In fact, let's just do a quick example here. Let's go into this one, and we'll keep going down this rabbit hole until we find more and more niches. So mental health coloring book is probably going to be a logical search term. Horror coloring book is going to be probably a logical search term. But let's try, in order to like qualify if this is worth our time, let's try mental health coloring book. So once you find a book with a specific topic for a specific audience, like mental health coloring book, it is a specific topic, we can then come to the search bar and see if Amazon makes any suggestions that branch off that search term, and that would give us a good idea if people are searching for it. So if we type in start typing mental health coloring book, we can see that we do have these branch off search terms. So book for adults, journals for teens, for kids. So whilst it's not a given, that says to me that there is going to be specific, there's going to be demand for this type of book. And you can also start targeting, you can use the search bar to start targeting a specific audience. For example, mental health coloring book for teens. So you can see how this is different to something like a Fuzzy Friends coloring book, which doesn't really have a niche or a search term. Whereas this mental health coloring book for teens, it's logical. It's being brought back on the search bar, and it's probably going to be a decent amount of search results, but ideally we want to see it less than 1,000. But another thing that we can look out for is how many books on the first page are specifically, and this is something no one talks about, how many on the first page are specifically mental health coloring books for teens. Okay, so what have I done? Let's go back. So how many are on the front page are specifically mental health coloring books for teens? So what we would want to do is take a look at the BSRs for the mental health coloring books for teens on the first page. So we look at something like this, which has got 9,000, 2 million, 60,000. Let's just do a couple more. I don't remember what this one is. It's taking too long to load. I think it was like 60,000. Let's just say this one here and this one here. This was quite low. This one, again, I can't remember what it was. Let's just see quickly. 400,000. So when we do things like this, we can now look at the demand versus the production cost. So one of the best things that you can do is just get an idea as to what BSRs translate to in sales. So in this case, you can use the calculators to get an idea as to what a BSR equates to in sales, and then weigh that up versus how much it costs to produce this book. So for example, if I was thinking about creating a mental health coloring book for teens, I would only be willing to invest, let's just say $100, maybe $50, because the BSRs aren't particularly good across these books. In fact, let's just try this one here as our last example. Mental health coloring book, bold and easy, 300,000. So the BSRs are okay. I would want the production cost to be super low. Whereas if before with the bigger niches, if the BSRs are super low, then we would probably be willing to spend a little bit more money on the content creation. So another example before I go is something like a flower coloring book for seniors. The search results, in my opinion, they can be somewhat skewed because I don't think there's going to be 20,000 specific flower coloring books for seniors. But again, you would come onto the first page and you would just check out the BSRs. They're looking slightly better, as we can see. So I might look at this niche and think, well, actually, I'll be willing to spend, let's say, $200 or $150 on the content creation for this. So this is where AI can become super helpful for people trying to get into these specific niches. So there is a little bit more that goes into the ranking process. You might get ranked for lots of different search terms. So that's why I don't put that much emphasis on keyword research anymore. What I put my emphasis on is more so the velocity of sales and making sure that advertising spend early on can help with that velocity of sales. Because you think about it logically, Amazon is going to prioritize and push books that are getting clicks and sales. So clicks come from amazing book covers, and your sales, they're going to come from having a good product. And when you get more sales, Amazon is going to push you out to more areas of its platform, which means you're going to get more organic sales. And again, if you want to check out more specifics on things like launching your book and monitoring your advertising so that you don't overspend, you know which metrics to look out to, we have all the course content inside the Raydog membership. Ads and marketing, launch, and KDP, the metrics mastery courses. They're going to cover pretty much everything that you need to know to make the most of your advertising spend. We got video format, and it's also summarized in text as well. So that is it for this video. If you're interested in joining the Raydog membership, where you have all the course content, live calls every single Friday, and without a doubt, in my opinion, the absolute best community that you can ever possibly be in, where people get feedback on their covers, their advertising stats, etc., then we have an incredible, very, very helpful, best of the best community that you can be in our Discord community. It's all part of the membership. If you want to check that out, it's chrisraydog.com. I'll see you in another video very soon.